What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the David Carson Show. My apologies to anyone waiting in the session. I know it's been a while. I was about to go live, and then my software crashed, so I had to recache all of the files, or all the scenes, rather. So, yep, that's always fun. But I'm kind of early today. I'm actually here at 4:40-ish Eastern. I'm officially announcing that I'm going to change it. I was aiming for 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to change it to 2. That gives me a bit more time to prepare in the morning. And then also, it gives me more time to, for stories to break and everything. Around 2 p.m., most stories break for the day. So I thought that was a good idea. So, yeah, I'm going to shoot for there. But, yeah, so I think I'm doing a pretty good job, though. For those that don't know, I streamed from 10 p.m. last night to 12 a.m. I stayed up to about 4:30 clipping all my stuff, scheduling all my clips for YouTube, youtube.com/@DavidCarsonShow. Yeah, so then I got up at 9, and I had some technical difficulties as usual. Only 7 podcasts in, so trying to streamline everything. I changed some stuff on my Stream Deck and everything. So for those that don't know, that's like a hotkey thing. It's for hotkeys and managing scenes and all that. It's really awesome. But yeah, so I changed some stuff on that, and I'm just trying to be patient with the timing. Really, I'm just trying to get everything dialed in as much as possible for the time being. But yeah, we have some interesting stories to get to today. Trump's black support up 12% and Biden's is down 30% since 2020 election. How crazy is that? Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor that got fired, Biden got fired, is willing to testify on the Biden and family investigation for Congress. Ramaswamy gets in a heated exchange with the CNN anchor. GOP lawyer and activist found dead. Police rule it a homicide. That one's crazy. Mark Levin explodes on Trump's Georgia indictment. This is 100 pages of BS, he says. Bernie Sanders scolds Democrats for losing support among working class and minority leaders. 5,000 pilots under investigation and 60 barred from flying. Larry Elder files complaint with FEC over his debate ban. Schools across the United States delaying the start of class or requiring masks because of COVID uptick. And then finally, paper straws confirmed to be worse than plastic straws. Who would have guessed? But yeah, let's get into the first one. Trump's black support is on the rise, and Biden's, what a surprise, is not. Yeah, so black supporters are going up for Trump a lot. Let's play a clip.
A new poll from Fox News has emerged suggesting that he is dramatically improving. In fact, he sees general improvement after every indictment. It's not absolute, but he does see his polling going up.
Yes,
New
sir.
polls from Interactive Polls on Twitter shows that he is currently beating Joe Biden in the general, but there's a whole bunch of different polls we have to break down. The data coming out from this latest poll is actually fairly interesting because it shows support among black voters. In 2020, a Fox News voter analysis had Donald Trump
91
at 8%.
versus 8.
Now, that's a hard analysis,
2020.
meaning they actually looked at support and said, that's what happened.
So the differential even grew more than that, because Biden dropped 30 and then Trump went up 12. So what's that, 42 points? Whew. Versus, what is yeah, that's crazy. What is that? 90 or 80. I'm not going to try to do the math right now. But yeah, it's crazy. Look at the differential. That's insane.
Now they're doing a poll. Doesn't mean it's completely accurate because it's just a poll and who knows what'll happen. But according to this 2023...
83. I don't know why that was so hard for me right now. Like I said, I got no sleep. I got like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, so bear with me.
Poll. Donald Trump is currently enjoying 20% support among black voters. And Joe Biden, who saw 91% support in 2020, now has only 61% in these polls. I see a bunch of videos popping up of people asking black Americans if they're going to be supporting Trump. And it tends to be a little bit of a mixed bag where people are like, no way, Trump's racist. But we are seeing more and more of these videos where you've got guys being like, I'm going to be honest. I'm voting for Trump. Don't F with my dog. There's that famous video where the one guy's like pointing the gun at the camera and he's like, don't F with Trump. This is going to be interesting.
I haven't seen that,
The Wall
but it
Street
sounds
Journal
funny.
wrote an article several years ago that said, if at any point the Democrats lose 20% of the black vote, they cannot win an election. That's it. It's over. And with Donald Trump gaining this support, it seems, as of right now, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen, and a lot can change in a year and a few months.
He
Donald
might go to
Trump
jail
can't
and they
lose.
might support him more. Who knows? Everyone's going to.
That's assuming this one poll is correct, but there are many other polls that are coming out showing that Trump's ahead of Biden. So let me just point out, as we're looking at all of this, there's a lot of people on the right, neocons and never Trumpers, saying Trump can't possibly win a general election, which makes literally no sense.
It
at
makes
all.
none at all.
I'm not saying Trump is going to win.
Trump won the general election in 2016. What are they even talking about?
Saying it's a guarantee he wins.
And he got more votes in 2020.
These polls, just one poll, 1,000 people, scientifically extrapolated. They say, we think this may be correct. Maybe they're wrong. But it's a good showing for Trump. Now, these people are saying Trump can't win. Trump lost 2020 by 42,000 votes. Trump won 2016 by like 70 to 80,000 votes. These are narrow margins. It's based on the Electoral College, not the popular vote. If you take a look at the popular vote count, you might think, well, Trump's not going to be able to beat Joe Biden again. But they don't have the lockdowns. They may be trying for the lockdowns. We're hearing more and more about mandates, etc. But I think the real issue is Democrats know they are in serious trouble. So why are they indicting Trump over and over and over again? Because they're losing and they know it. Not only
And it's just backfiring.
does this poll show
It's
that
just
Donald
making them
Trump
lose
is
more.
dramatically improving among the black population, enough so that the Republicans might actually gain enough support from the black, Latino, and Asian population to win, making it impossible for Democrats to win. You've got Cornel West, considered a spoiler for Democrats, garnering around 4% of the vote, which knocks Biden out of the running. And then you have this story, which really makes you wonder. From Forbes, Trump co-defendant Harrison Floyd denied bond. Why he's still in jail. Do you know who Harrison Floyd is? Harrison Floyd is the director of Black Voices for Trump. It's really amazing. He's the only one who was remanded to custody. The only one they truly fear and don't want out on the campaign trail. And they hope they can brush this all under the rug.
I didn't even think of that.
I'm sorry. Look, I think the Republican Party, it's a bunch of uniparty, neocon, warmongers, et cetera, et cetera. There's a handful of them that I think are good, that I kind of like. They're more libertarian leaning or anti-establishment. For the most part, Republicans are just, you know what, it's the Washington Generals to the Democrats' Harlem Globetrotters. I love it when Democrats make that argument. Yeah, they have to act like they're weak when they're destroying everything where there's no accountability. We get it. This is what they're trying to do. They know that Trump is improving. They know that Joe Biden can't win without hard procedural support, a lockdown perhaps, universal mail-in voting.
That's
and I don't even know if Biden
again.
can win with those things because the economy is not that great. It's easy when Donald Trump is in office, you got a bad economy. Or you got COVID lockdowns because they can blame it all on him. But now it's Joe
People
Biden.
are booing and flipping him off when he went to Maui and everything. Just people don't like him. He was in Lake Tahoe on vacation and he did a press, like he talked to the press the other day, and everyone's just booing him. You can hear in the background a bunch of people booing at him. It's insane. Nobody likes this guy.
Biden's fault. Trump's not even in office. That's an advantage. They're going after him with the indictments, and they're trying to remove his name from the ballot. We have a court filing already, I think it's out of Florida, where they're saying Trump's an insurrectionist. It has begun. But they can't just lock him up. Dan Bongino said that Trump should have not posted bond and then called their bluff. I agree. Call their bluff. Say, I'm not going to post. Let's roll, baby. I'll go and sit in jail. And Dan Bongino said, let's make our first presidential, our political prisoner a president for the first time. But they let him out and they let everyone else out because the indictments are to do, firstly, one thing, drain the resources of the Trump sphere of influence. Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, the Republicans in Georgia who supported Trump, Trump himself, Trump's other legal representatives, members of his administration, Mark Meadows, John Eastman, Jeffrey Clark, drain their resources. Georgia has effectively unlimited resources as far as anyone's concerned. There are limits for sure. But the
Yeah,
federal
but compared
government,
to individuals,
effectively unlimited resources being levied against the Trump sphere of influence, forcing them to pay hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to defend themselves. But there is one man that they truly fear, and that is Harrison Floyd. Yo, I watched this video, and it should make your blood boil. This polite, well-mannered man who voluntarily surrendered, same as anybody else, denied bond. And the judge with a smile on her face. No, you can't leave. You're here
I wish
for
you would
good.
show this video.
Maybe ask another judge. It's not up to me. Sorry.
That's
One guy.
sick.
Why? Because he runs Black Voices for Trump. Because they know if they start losing the black vote,
This is just
Trump
gonna backfire.
can't lose. And the polls show it.
Like we're talking
This
about it.
is political interference and manipulation to the worst degree we have ever seen in this country. And it's getting crazy. But you know what? Let them play their dirty games because we're winning across the board. The creepy facade they've tried to maintain over culture is breaking down their own voter base. Good. I love it.
Great.
Let you reap what you sow.
I also love it.
Take a look at this from the Wall Street Journal. Where Democrats' grip on minority voters could slip in midterm elections from September 30th, 2022. This is 2022. There's a lot of questions about why the Republicans did not do better. And I think people underestimate how well Trump actually did. They heard this narrative that said, Trump didn't do well enough. Okay, let me tell you. They said, Trump's predictions, he didn't do so well. The Republicans were supposed to have a tsunami, and they barely took control of the House. Yeah, that's probably universal mail-in voting and other procedural changes that Democrats have maintained power over Republicans. Republicans don't understand the power of ballot.
After the 22 election, Republicans ever since they've been talking about ballot harvesting. Where it's legal, they're going to start doing the same thing. And why not? It's illegal.
Chasing. It's not about convincing people to vote for you. This video right now, preaching to the choir. Perhaps you could share it. And perhaps you can say, here are some reasons to vote against Democrats.
I'm sharing it on my own stream here,
I like the Republican Party, to be completely honest. But we got to get more anti-establishment figures and libertarian types to run. But I'll take it over what the Democrats are doing. War, the destruction of our country. I mean, look at what's going on in San Francisco. There's no question. No question. Maybe you can convince people, but I don't think convincing people is really what matters for the Democrats. They know they can put on the TV. People are going to watch CNN and MSNBC. They're going to hear garbled nonsense from people like Chris Christie, and they're going to be like, I'm going to vote for him. Yeah, Chris Christie, great. Excellent performance in the lesser-known GOP debates. What the Democrats know is that ballot harvesting is the true way you go about this. Because there's some dude sitting in his basement playing video games in a big city or in a suburb, and they're going to knock on the door every single day, and the dude's going to be like, can I help you? And I'm like, did you vote yet? And it's like, dude, I don't care, leave. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. And it'll be another person that'll be like, I'm sorry for bothering you. We're just, we're doing get out the vote. You have your mail-in ballot, right? And they'll be like, yeah, just fill it out right now. I'll take it from you. And then, there you go. And that's why you end up with all of these ballots that just Biden, nothing down ballot. Now, there are questions about what happened in 2020. I can totally respect that.
It sounds funny because he's like, oh, did you vote? So they just keep coming back. He fills out his ballot. I'll take it from you and we'll leave you alone. And then every day still, damn it. I already told you people. That sounds hilarious because how are they going to know? I guess maybe you could have a database, like an organized database in your local area or something to say if you got a ballot from them. But yeah, it sounds really funny.
Reportedly with no creases. They weren't even mailed in. Where did those come from? I could totally understand that. But if Trump only lost by 42,000 votes, a lot of that doesn't matter.
Strange.
Let's operate under the assumption y'all are correct. They fraudulently mass-produced ballots and double-counted them. We know there were some double counting. They caught it. Those were removed, according to a bunch of sources. There were no audits to look for other double counting, so people assume there's more, not proving there are more. But let's operate under the assumption. Let's just say,
let us investigate.
You're correct. Doesn't matter. You know why? Because as soon as the Republicans start ballot chasing, they're going to close that gap between 42,000 and 0. And Donald Trump then wins. That's it.
Yeah.
Let them do whatever they want. If Scott Presler ramps up his efforts, if the GOP embraces what he's doing with voter registration, it's over. And if we look at these trends with minorities slipping away, that's it. That's it. Trump can't lose. From the Wall, so that story So from September 30th, 2022, we then had this story from November 7th, 2022. GOP gaining support among Black and Latino voters, Wall Street Journal poll finds. It's not just a poll from 1 year later that Fox News finds Trump gaining support among Black voters. A year ago, they found 17% said they would pick a Republican candidate over a Democrat for Congress. That is apocalyptic news. And this is why I think they are locking up Harrison Floyd. Maybe you never heard of the guy. I didn't. Not until they announced these indictments against Trump in his sphere of influence.
Yeah, likewise.
They probably looked through these names and they said, we're going to drain the resources of his legal team, of anyone who can try and help him win legal challenges. Rudy Giuliani. 2024 comes along. They're going to be filing lawsuits, or they would have been, over election issues leading into 2024. Oh, you better believe there's going to be so many lawsuits in 2024.
Yeah.
Before the election.
Countless.
And the courts are going to try and pull this standing BS. But I think more and more lawyers are getting prepared for what that actually is and what it means. And thus, they're going to cite the precedent of 2020. So when they say, here's why we're filing suit, and the court then says, well, you have no standing until after the election, they'll say, wrong. The judge ordered and ruled we had to file beforehand. Boom, there it is. They'll still play dirty games, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I'm interesting how they're going to handle that one.
But you're going to see a ton of lawsuits being filed. What happens? The arrest and prosecution of these lawyers means their money is going to be spent on other things. It's a trick. It is evil. These people are
It's ironic, though, because it seems like them doing this stuff, it's just going to give them more money. Like, we should start a GoFundMe for this guy. You know what I mean? With Harrison Floyd? Yeah, we should start a GoFundMe for him, and then it won't worry, but it's still taking up his time. It's keeping it from the campaign trail. It's still really messed up.
It's crazy to me. I'm it's shocking when I see like the Krasensteins. The Krasensteins I view as today. I view them more
pushing
abjectly evil.
There isn't
my
notifications for no reason.
Before I saw them as just like normie liberal dudes who are
them.
making arguments. And then they indicted Trump's lawyers for simply being his lawyers. And then the Krasensteins, for those not familiar, these are prominent liberal personalities on X, formerly known as Twitter. We've had them on the show. And I thought for the most part, they were just ignorant of many of the issues. And so they were your typical liberal guy. Anyone who looks at the indictment of, say, Jenna Ellis or Jeffrey Clark or Mark Meadows, but I say Jenna Ellis outright is the most egregious. Anyone who defends the criminal charges against her, evil. Sorry, there's no question in my mind anymore. Jenna Ellis is charged in the case against Trump on counts 1 and 2, RICO and solicitation of a public officer to violate their oath of office. That's it. Literally because she was Trump's lawyer. Protected legal counsel. Trump says, I want to challenge these things. Says, okay, I'll file the paperwork. We got her, they said. I'm like, what? She's a lawyer filing legal paperwork. And then let's advance there and say
it's outrageous.
Jeffrey Clark is even more egregious. He was the acting assistant attorney general for the U.S. government. And he was asked by Trump in his position as a federal officer, not I shouldn't say officer, but a federal representative, saying, yeah, here's how you would file these things. Here's how I think it works. Boom. They say RICO. Anyone who defends that,
it's a joke.
They're lying to you. It's no longer about being stupid. Everyone knows that legal counsel is protected.
Everybody knows that.
We had Fresh and Fit on the podcast last night. And apparently, and I'll have to look more into this, but they were saying there are notes from Trump's lawyers in the indictment against him at the federal level.
What?
That's protected communications. That's constitutionally protected legal counsel. They don't care. They're playing dirty.
Wow.
And the reason is they know they can't win. That's why I think they're locking up Harrison Floyd.
And those notes, if they do have them, they're probably nothing. They're probably like, okay, who even cares about that?
Dude, it was so brutal. To hear this poor guy say, Your Honor,
every time they leak conversations at Trump or whatever, and you actually hear them, they're just, who cares?
Voluntarily surrendered. I'm here. I don't understand for what reason I'm being denied bond. And she's just smiling, saying, well, too bad. Off to jail with you. It's like, wow. The only guy they remanded was the black guy? Yep. because they're racist, they are evil, and they are fascists. Now, I know it sounds a little bit cliche, and we always get this thing where it's like, oh, don't call the Democrats fascists. There's like a meme where it's like, Democrats are the real racists. Listen, Democrats have always been racist. There's no difference now. They try, with critical race theory, they push segregation. But let's be real. The only guy they remand is the black dude. That's their line. They should be saying that about Republicans, but here it is. Democrats are the ones doing it. The guy who runs Black Voices for Trump, the only guy they remand.
Shows their true colors.
Sure. Like I believe them. Things are getting crazy. And I think they realize Trump's boost in the polls, the indictments, Trump's playing them. Dan Bongino made that point about Trump not surrendering. I agreed. But maybe we don't see what Trump sees. And I can respect that. We're not in that sphere. We are not sitting there with Trump's PR team and his legal team. And maybe Trump's right. Maybe he's right. I think he sat down with his lawyers and they said, listen, it'll cost you more money. It's going to drain your resource, make it harder for the campaign. The best move now is surrender peacefully, get the mugshot, fundraise off of it, use what they're doing to actually boost you, counter it. And I think maybe that's Trump's.
He already knew that. Like a week before his indictment, he was making a joke about it. He's like, yeah, they keep indicting me. I just keep going up in the polls. All we just need is one more, and then we'll close it. And then he gets it. And it's like, oh, you just gave him what he wanted. And then the mug shot on top of it. Who?
Strategy.
They're just playing right into his hands. He wanted this to happen. He was saying it at rallies.
Resisting and fighting, treat it like a Chinese finger trap. Move in, raise $7 million off that photo, which he did.
Yep.
People are buying these.
$7 million
we
already.
We made the Trump revenge poster using his mugshot. It is free for anyone. We made it, but we relinquish all ownership rights. Anyone can use it. Trump's making money.
Revenge.
He's getting a boost in the polls. They try, but it's not working. Trump making $7 million bumps him up. They're trying to drag his resources.
That's just
bumping him up.
So far.
Here we go. Let's roll. Colin Rugg says a challenge has been filed in federal court to have Trump removed from the 2024 race under the 14th Amendment. Mark my words, they'll claim they're doing this to protect democracy. Attorney Lawrence Kaplan filed a challenge claiming Trump cannot legally be on the 2024 ballot because he engaged in an insurrection. The bottom line here is a quote, is that President Trump both engaged in an insurrection and also gave aid and comfort to other individuals who were engaging in such actions within the clear meaning of those terms as defined in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Kaplan said in his filing, assuming that the public record to date is accurate, and we have no evidence to the contrary, Trump is no longer eligible to seek office of the President of the United States or of any other state of the Union. You know, Tim Pool is trending right there on Twitter. You can see it.
Huh.
And as always, some weird reason why I'm trending. It was really funny. Apparently, the other day I was trending. It said Tim Pool is trending in Tim Pool. I trend so often. I have my own category on Twitter/X. I have my own category of Tim Pool because the real reason why that is because the reason there's a Tim Pool category, just as an aside, is because of Timcast IRL. Someone will say something like, so-and-so just said this on Tim Pool's show, which creates this umbrella of Tim Pool's show and then all of the guests we have and the things they say and the clips that go viral. So it creates a category of it.
I got to start a show like that.
But one of the reasons that I talk about Civil War.
It's hard to get guests, though.
Look, man, I don't know what's going to happen. I talk about Civil War, and I'm not the only one. Tucker Carlson asked Trump about it, and Trump said, I've never seen passion and hatred so hot, but I just don't know. And I think it's fair. Of course, I cite Stephen Marsh quite a bit, though I disagree with him on a lot of political issues and my perspective on politics. He says he is a multicultural democracy guy. I'm a constitutional republic kind of guy. Yeah. But I recommend his book, The Next Civil War. And he says we're in civil strife already. This is effectively the bleeding Kansas phase, which happened just before the Civil War. I can't tell you what will happen, but my friends, when they are filing to have Trump's name removed from the ballot, there's no election. If Trump's name is removed from even a single state, there's no election. That's it. There's no election.
People can write him in.
And it's an interesting way to phrase it. Roseanne was sitting here with Michael Malice.
Sounds interesting. I wonder how that would work.
She said that there...
Pause. What is it doing? I wonder how that would work, right? Because if you just wrote him in, but they said he can't be on the ballot, he would still win that state, though, right? Interesting question.
Wasn't going to be an election. And Michael Malice bet her there would be. So we're going to have we're preparing a show in Austin maybe for January.
I'm from Austin.
I think that one is about her saying there's going to be military tribunals. Yeah, that's not happening. But she said there wouldn't be an election, so that'll be a really interesting follow-up. But I asked to clarify, and I said, what do you mean by that? There's not going to be an election. Because most people assume what that means is, come November, Joe Biden comes out and says, due to the ongoing war in Ukraine and the political conflict happening in the United States, the elections are postponed. Gavel. Boom. Oh, no, there's no elections. Does it really mean that? Maybe that's what she meant. But I said, what if, like, Trump is removed from the ballot? Then is there an election? No, of course not. Trump is the clear frontrunner. We see it in all the polls. We know Trump is winning. This is the latest from IA polls. Emerson, an A-minus poll. Trump, 46% to Biden's 44%. Trump is up by 2 points when these two candidates are placed head-to-head. But get this. When Trump is placed against Cornel West, Biden does even worse.
Wow.
With Cornel West on the ticket, Trump is up 5 points in the general polling. He's at 50% in the GOP. There's no point in DeSantis or anybody else even running. This is from August 25th, 26th with 1,000 registered voters. It's a decent sample size, not the biggest. It's decent. Same as the African-American support for Trump. 1,000 is about decent. It's not perfect. Polls tend to be wrong. It gets worse for Democrats. We know that the polls have been skewing pro-Democrat by up to 7 points consistently. Why? They're oversampled. The one reason may be people don't answer phone calls anymore, and that Donald Trump has woken up a voter base that typically does not vote.
For whatever reason, it just seems like Democrats are more likely to answer surveys. I don't know why, but I think that's the issue with the polls.
That was in 2016. Times have changed, and it's hard to track these days. But assuming the trends are correct and that polling is skewed in favor of Democrats quite a bit, Trump's going to win. Now, perhaps to overcompensate for this, we saw tremendous polling for Republicans in 2020 and 2022, and the Democrats did better than anyone realized. The economic trends and polling in 2020 was heavily favorable to Republicans, but not so much to Trump. And then, of course, Joe Biden ended up eking out that win by 42,000 votes in 3 states. They try to play this game. In 2016, they said Trump won in a landslide because of the Electoral College. No, he didn't. It was like 70,000 votes. He barely won, and they were pissed off. Hillary Clinton should have campaigned in Wisconsin and Michigan more so than she did. She didn't. She ignored it. They thought they couldn't lose.
Anyway,
Trump converted these states. And now Florida apparently is no longer a swing state. It's now deep red. That's why they want to remove Trump's name from the ballot. Good luck with that in Florida. But if they do, Trump can't win. If Trump's name is removed from the ballot, he cannot win. Period. No matter how many people support him.
Again, if they write him in, though, I wonder what would happen there.
So what I think we'll see is Georgia.
I guess Tim's point is, like, even if he's off of there, just not enough people will write him in. People probably don't even know they can do it. That is fair.
Maybe Ohio and Florida.
But if Trump comes out and says it and everyone's talking about it, who knows?
Florida being so deep red, I really doubt it'll happen. A lot of people migrated away from their awful blue states into Florida. But Georgia, there's another reason why they're going after Trump in Florida. It's only a matter of time before they file their lawsuit, a civil suit, not a criminal complaint, to have Trump removed from the ballot, arguing that even the indictment is enough to argue he's an insurrectionist. And it's funny because we had this conversation on Timcast IRL, and we had Eric Hunley say, yeah, but he wasn't convicted. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. A civil argument is not a criminal court case.
Right.
You can sue a ham sandwich. You can file whatever you want.
And the judge decides.
They will file. They are going to bombard the system with these lawsuits. And you know what? Why wouldn't a judge just agree? But if Trump is removed from even a single state, we're effectively North Korea. Because then it is a foregone conclusion. Democrats can't lose if their opponents can't run. That's it. So what do you think this is? Right now, there are 2 factions. Within these 2 parent factions in the culture war, there are numerous other factions. A cold cultural civil war. Call it whatever you want. What happens when Trump's name is removed from the ballot? There's a video going viral we'll talk about probably later, where a bunch of eco-activists are blocking, they barricade the road. I think it's to Burning Man. That's what the video said. And the police ram the barricade. Now, protesters are claiming that the cops ran people over. They didn't. But when the cop rams the trailer that they're using as a blockade, it does cause it to spin, hitting some of the activists who are linking arms and have chain trying to block the road, and it knocks them over. They seem to be mostly fine. The cop then jumps out with what appears to be a taser screaming on the ground. And then you have this woman screaming, "Oh, we're nonviolent."
Can't blame them.
I love it so much.
It's kind of, I mean, you're in the road. I mean, like, not violence or not. If I just go lay on the road in a dark area and someone runs me over, I can't be like, "Oh no, why'd you do that?" It's like, I'm on the, why are you in the road?
Finally dealing with these psychopaths. But you can't stop it. The eco activists, mostly nonsense, right? So what? They're blocking the road. Any one of the people who are in their cars could get up and eventually just move these people out of the way. And the cops ram the trailer because they're just not having it. But let's talk about something different. These far-left extremists have already been violent in the Pacific Northwest. They've already marched around with rifles. Do we get to the point where a state highway or interstate, 2-lane interstate, you get in the middle of nowhere, the interstates can get a little bit small, right?
Yep.
Two lanes with a divider, of course. Maybe 4 lanes.
Yeah, 4 lanes. 2 in each
What
direction.
happens if 5 guys of any political persuasion and guns block the road then?
That'd be nuts.
Traffic backs up for miles, hundreds of miles. Supplies are not being delivered. What happens if they remove Trump's name from the ballot, and then when it comes to the general election, people on the right are just like, in various cities saying, there's no election. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, if Trump's name is removed from the ballot, they may as well not cover the election results at all. People won't even turn the TV on. I'm not saying everybody. This is the mistake people make. They assume this means that all the red states will immediately start marching down the street, with rifles. No, it means that you're going to have pockets of small towns of people being like, we don't have elections anymore. And then they're going, you might see exactly what we're seeing already with these eco-activists, but on the other side, already with Antifa, but on the other side, Antifa shooting people in Provo, Utah. Far-left extremists running up to a car and shooting the driver for no reason. Civil strife.
Insane.
People are like, there's no civil war. Oh, man.
If the left gets crazy enough,
many of these people
what else is going to happen?
Had just gotten to experience any bit of the civil strife happening in any of these other countries. Because then you'd be like, I can't believe it.
Tim Pool's been to like Civil War zones and stuff. If you don't know, he's been to, he used to be like a journalist on the ground. Then he got too famous so people would recognize him, so he had to stop doing it. But yeah, he's been to war zones and stuff, so he knows what he's talking about.
I'll tell you what I saw in Egypt. And I'm not an expert on Egypt. I'm looking down from the Hilton on the streets in front of it, and groups of people start coming up these ramps like a highway or something. It's been a long time. And they are shooting at each other with makeshift shotgun pistols, whatever you want to call it. They had these really interesting, they made a handgun that took shotgun shells, I think 12 gauge, and they were shooting each other. In fact, one of the guys from Vice got shot in the back with bird shot. Crazy.
Wow.
Someone died. I remember watching them carry away what I can only assume was a dead body that got shot. And then the revolution happened. APCs going through the streets, the military said the country is on the verge of collapse and intervened. The military then started gunning down members of the Muslim Brotherhood who protested the removal of their duly elected president.
Wow.
A civil war, a revolution, a second revolution. So maybe what's happening here doesn't result in that.
I hope
But
not.
I don't know what to tell you. Look at what's going on around you. I cannot predict the future. I can only predict variables. The way I see it, I want you to imagine a loom or something like that. I watched a video of a cable being threaded. And what I see in front of me is behind us, imagine a braid, a thick rope knotted together, braided together. And in front of us is all the different strands. And each of those strands is a possibility, and they are being woven together. Each one of them could be the path we take. We don't know for sure, just percentages. So when it comes to looking a year and a half down the road, it's impossible to predict with all these different pathways that emerge from different pathways.
Way
think
too
like a fractal pattern or a lightning bolt. But before us, the probabilities start to become clearer and clearer as we choose which road we go down. And each road we go down leads to a new branch of possibilities. I mean, it's a simple analogy, right? So I can't tell you which of the 10,000 different paths we're going to end up on. I can tell you there are only a few, hundred right in front of us. For example, one thing I've talked about, the Democrats' best strategy for winning is Joe Biden suffers a medical issue on stage while rallying in California. Joe Biden says, I'm going to go to California. We're going to do a rally and we're going to talk about immigration, blah, blah, blah. Presidential election. Gavin Newsom as a surrogate. Gavin Newsom opens and says, everybody, we're going to support Joe Biden. We're going to help him win, blah, blah, blah. Bidenomics is working.
Everyone boos
Biden
him.
comes out, he's giving a speech.
Boo!
And all of a sudden, he starts to put his hand on his head, grips his chest, falls over. Gavin Newsom runs full speed. Secret Service runs out. Gavin Newsom rips off his jacket, starts yelling Secret Service. They call it in. He's given CPR to Joe Biden, saves his life. Is an extreme scenario that seems extremely unlikely. I'm not saying it will happen.
Joe Biden, if Newsom was giving him CPR, I'd probably just start smelling him and doing all this creepy stuff. Hey, man, thanks. I appreciate it. Let me smell you.
Gets Kamala Harris out of the way. That gets Joe Biden out of the way. Joe Biden then says Gavin Newsom's a hero. He gives a press tour. I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm saying that's their best case scenario. Who knows what could happen? There's a lot we can imagine. I'm just saying we are in unprecedented times. And this idea, that it's funny when people are just like, civil war.
I don't know why they think it's a joke.
I'm not saying I know for sure. Call it a cold civil war because everyone else is.
I would definitely say we're in
I
a
think cold civil war is probably
already.
a stupid way to describe it because civil strife is the better way to put it. It's the academic way to put it, and it's what Bleeding Kansas basically was. People are being killed over politics. Aaron Danielson shot twice in the chest by a communist. So what ends up happening as we move forward? Civil war. Small factions break off, start fighting. The government loses confidence. We've already had autonomous zones emerge. If these trends continue, where do we go? I'll tell you what I fear. I was thinking about something over the weekend. The autonomous zones. Occupations. Occupy Wall Street was 12 years ago. What happens when far left extremists set up another Chaz, a larger one? But you know what they decide? They're going to use private property. What happens when a group of far leftists decide we're going to use this derelict property that is private, and it becomes an issue of a civil action against the private owner? The private owner then contacts the police and says, this lot belongs to me. I would like the police to remove these extremists. The police then say, we have no resources for removing these far left extremists. The owner then says that I will hire private security.
The Northwest.
The far left extremists.
Well, I mean, they could have, I guess. The mayors just didn't want to. When in Portland and Seattle, I think they were. They're just like, no, just let them stay there. Summer of love.
Private land results in people on the right saying, holy crap, the far left is now setting up larger and larger occupations to seize land. The police are incapable and unwilling to intervene. Many cops are resigning. Many cops are actually just saying, I don't have anything to do with this. This is between you and them. The cops will just say, civil. What happens when the far left?
I don't know about that. That sounds hardcore.
They occupy a privately run business and say it's now an occupation.
A militia would come and fight those guys. I'm like sure of it.
It was one thing when they set up a corridor around city streets with rifles, and they even shot and killed people. That happened. It's remarkable. People are like, civil war can't happen. Bro, they occupied a section of a city and shot and killed people.
Yep.
And they're like, nah, that'll all go away. Sure, I guess. I don't see the off-ramp. What happens when they do it on private land? And the cops don't intervene?
Militia.
Well, let's entertain a few scenarios. They're not particularly likely. There's many variables before us. Who knows what it'll be? The property owner then hires private security. Private security then goes and tries to stop the occupation. The occupants, armed with rifles, threaten them and say, you have no authority here. You're not the police. You're just dudes with guns.
It's crazy if a militia did go and fight them, though. It's just so weird now because of the optics. The media would be like, they would blame the militia and wouldn't blame the extremists. They're like, they're peaceful. The media is horrible.
Wing individuals then say, we got to put a stop to these far leftists, and you get an actual shootout. When the far left occupied their own cities, no conservative groups went and cared. But what happens when it spreads to suburbs or more rural areas? That has me worried. I don't know for sure. What I can tell you is they're scared and they're desperate. Trump is going to win. That's why they're going after legal attack. It's lawfare. They know they can't win the general. Tell these never-Trumpers. Look, if it were hopeless, they would not be screeching in desperation and crying bloody murder. Yep. They would not be trying to arrest. They would not be indicting. They would not be trying to get his name off the ballot. They're scared, especially with rich men north of Richmond, Bud Light, Target, Sound of Freedom. They're losing the culture war.
Disney,
and so the only thing they have left is brute force.
Every movie they bring out.
I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, but to sum it up, it's an interesting video. To sum it up, Trump is going to win. He's going to keep growing in the polls. The indictments are just making him just, they're getting him in the news and they're just putting people onto his side. Because if you go and look up these cases, anyone goes and looks up these cases, they're just going to side with Trump because more importantly than just Trump, it's like the lawyers is breaking attorney-client privilege. It's just ruining everything for America, for everybody. It's setting such a scary precedent. Who wants that? So now everyone's just going to side with Trump and think it's stupid because if he ends up losing and then losing on appeal, that's the precedent now. They can just go after anybody. They could go after lawyers for filing paperwork. Like, who wants this? I can't see them even convincing any jury, like anywhere of this, what they're going in Fulton County. Even if it was the bluest area of like San Francisco, I think people would be like scared. The jury would be like, oh, I don't want this to happen to me because that's what the defense is obviously going to say. It's going to set a precedent and then everyone's going to lose their attorney-client privilege. And like, why would anybody want to do that? So, yeah, it's just a waste of time and money, and it's just backfiring because of that. Everyone could just see right through it. But I will leave that there. Let's move on to the next story. Viktor Shokin is willing to testify on Biden family investigation. Here's a clip.
In the meantime, changing gears, new email revealing that Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devon Archer, met with then Secretary of State John Kerry back in 2016. Their alleged meeting came just weeks before Ukraine's top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, was investigating Burisma when he was fired.
The redacted email shows Archer planned to meet with, quote, S, that's the redacted part, which Fox News Digital confirms refers to Kerry, on March 2nd of 2016. This comes as House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says Republicans are inching closer toward articles of impeachment for President Biden.
All right, so Viktor Shokin sounded off on One Nationwide show over the weekend about Burisma's alleged corruption. He wanted to give his side of the story for the first time and using the Bidens as, quote, protection. Listen.
I have no doubt that there were illegal activities engaged in by Burisma. As a matter of fact, the criminal case had been started before me. The founder and CEO of Burisma started bringing in people who could provide protection for him. Hunter Biden was among them, and the corruption network expanded as a result.
So, by the way, he did say, I was reminded by Crystal, who edited the piece, he did say he's more than happy to come and testify in front of Congress. So
Congress just has to ask.
Right. So Mike Johnson says, yeah, we're going to do that. But Viktor Shokin came out and said, listen.
That'll be a crazy
I want to
testimony.
Dispel a few things. Number one, I was looking into Burisma. There's no doubt about it. Number two, President Poroshenko did not want to fire me. He was basically pushing to be firing him. And now everybody knows because Joe Biden, in my view, foolishly bragged about it at the Council of Foreign Relations. At the very least, even if it was 100% true, why would you rub a country's face in it that you decided who would serve and who else would serve? For example, what if another country came over here and said, I want you to fire your attorney general? How would we feel about that? Well, they had no choice. Shokin went on to say it humiliated the whole country. I mean, it's so obvious that we're a vassal of America.
What was interesting is he said he was poisoned twice with mercury, and you got the medical reports that actually confirmed that. He said, no doubt there were illegal activities happening, and he said Joe and Hunter accepted bribes. bribes. He used that a little later in the interview. He said Joe was VP and he ultimately hurt America's reputation and created a groundwork for Russia to invade Ukraine. And then later, Biden admitted all of this. He said, remember, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. And he said, well, he used SOB. He got fired. That's what he said on camera. He bragged about it.
And Hunter on camera, excuse me, not Hunter, Devin Archer on camera said Shokin was the problem. He was a threat to Burisma. So that dispels another thought that we wanted someone in there to investigate, and they didn't. He was getting close, and that's why he was ousted.
And is that why Devin Archer met with the Secretary of State John Kerry weeks before Shokin was fired?
And you got to figure, too, that John Kerry's son was also, for a while, part of that trio.
Yeah, they started Seneca.
And then he stepped aside.
They started Rosemont Seneca together.
It's
wow,
according to
it's all connected.
Fox News, digital story about this regarding John Kerry meeting with Devin Archer. It's unclear what they talked about, and it's unclear if Burisma ever came up. But nonetheless, those are things that the House Republicans are pushing toward an impeachment inquiry. Some House Republicans have wanted to impeach this president since day one. Mike Johnson sat down with Brian a little while ago and talked a little.
The reason why is because all this evidence, the Hunter Biden laptop, the CFR thing was a while ago. So we've just all known this before. So on day one, they're like, hey, we have grounds to impeach this guy already. The Hunter Biden thing, it's crazy that guy left the laptop at some random repair shop. That destroyed his family so much. They're all supportive of Hunter in private. They must hate that guy. It's like, you just ruined if you could have just not. And he put everything on his laptop. It's kind of like he just did it on purpose. He really might have. Why do he had every photo he ever took on his laptop. It's like, why would you do that? All these text messages and all this stuff on your laptop. So it's like a backup. I don't know. Maybe he thought it was more secure for himself than a Google Drive or something. And he might be right. But yeah, that's just crazy. You'd think you'd try to get an encrypted service or something like that. And if you had the laptop, if you did think it was safer, why would you take it to a repair shop and then just leave it there? Yeah, that's just nuts. He just unveiled all this stuff because of it.
A little bit about what this guy from Ukraine is saying that many Americans are now wondering about our president.
Just think of it, the simplicity of it. Here's the summary. The president bribed or pressured a foreign leader to fire that country's top prosecutor because the prosecutor was investigating his son. And he used $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer money to have that bidding done. And then he bragged about it on video. I can't understand why every news outlet is not covering this as the first story this morning and throughout this process. Mr. Shokin, of course, is an important voice in this because he was directly involved. He was the target of the president. And the idea that he believes there was bribery confirms what many of us are already thinking.
So the drumbeat for impeachment getting louder. I saw that Donald Trump, former President Trump, took to Truth Social to essentially take that up. He said, he was talking about Congress. He said, these lowlifes impeached me twice, I won, and indicted me 4 times for nothing. Either impeach the bum or fade into oblivion. They did this to us. There was one other note I just saw on one of the TV blogs, Mediaite, where it talks a little bit about speaking of the presidential level, after the presidential debate on Fox, Emerson has done a new poll. Former President Trump was at 56%. He has now apparently lost a little altitude. He's down to 50. Ron DeSantis is at 12. He had been 10. Mike Pence went from 3 to 7. Nikki Haley went from 2 to 7. Chris Christie went from 3 to 5. And Vivek Ramaswamy went down from 10 to 9.
And you see, I saw a poll, almost 70% of Democrats do not want Joe Biden to run again.
See, he's too old.
Right. But Ro Kahana says just let Joe be Joe and let him loose. All right, and start doing some interviews and let him go.
See how that goes.
Right. So far, he's struggling to know how to leave the stage, let alone how to go through 50 states and sell his cause. And if you don't like the economy, he will yell at you. So I don't know if that is going to lift up his approval.
Well, people are going to the poll.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian.
Yeah, very interesting. Shokin, this guy could just really spell the doom for them completely. It's so damning. Like, all the other stuff is really damning, but him specifically, he's the guy who got fired. He talked to the president, and yeah, it's insane. So, yeah, I guess we'll just see what happens. But if he testifies, it's going to just get. I love it because no matter what, it's shining a spotlight. Because most people, like people on the left and people on the right that know about this stuff, yeah, and we're like kind of battling back and forth. The people on the right like this, and then the people in Biden camp are always defending him, and for whatever reason. But normal people are just like seeing all of this stuff he's doing. Like Joe Rogan's talking about it more and more. And then that gets more eyes and ears onto this whole situation to be like, oh, so Biden really is corrupt. And then it goes, like I talked a lot about the media. It's just making them go away from the media, everybody, because like, why is the media never talking about this? They never talk about this. Why don't I hear about this? Only Fox News covers it. Why? So then they go to alternative media. They go to people on the internet, like people like Jimmy Dore and stuff that are also leftists, but they'll tell you the truth. You know, I love people on the left that are anti-establishment. I don't agree with them politically, like at all, but I like the people that are real. Like if Donald Trump was as corrupt as everyone says, I wouldn't like Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, like I've said in other videos, honestly isn't my first choice. I'd like Ron Paul, but he's obviously too old. And I like Dave Smith from the Libertarian Party. So yeah, but Trump is pretty good. You know, when you could criticize him where he did go wrong in his first term. I think he's going to do way better. I think he's learned a lot. He was too into the deep state and stuff like that, and he listened to him. I think that was like his biggest flaw. And I don't agree with him politically on everything either. Like, didn't he raise cigarette age to like 21 or something? He banned bump stock, stuff like that. It's just like, I don't like that stuff. But I thought he was good, pretty good overall. So that's how you could tell the difference between the left and the right. That's the point I'm bringing up, is people on the right will criticize Trump. People on the left won't criticize Biden. So that makes it way more likely, right? To normal people that Trump isn't the corrupt one. Because when you hear people on the right calling out Trump for his flaws, you know, like Dave Smith, he'll go on Joe Rogan. He's a libertarian. He'll go and talk and argue against Trump and all of his flaws, right? So, but then people on the left, they'll be like, no, Biden's perfect. Why aren't they like, okay, yeah, Biden's bad. Get someone else in there. Get RFK in there or whoever they want. But you just know straight up that Biden's bad. But that's kind of the thing at this point. Like, their whole party's bad, right? It's just like, look at Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg and all this stuff. Look at the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. All this stuff, they weaponize the government. They're all bad. So if you're staying on the left through all this, you just either you're bad yourself or you just don't care. You just want your policies to go through. You're that politically just, okay, I really want these policies, and they're going to give me those policies. If they're corrupt, they're corrupt. Who cares? It's interesting, though, because you would think, hey, if they're corrupt, they're not going to give you what you want. They're just lying, right? That's the thing with corruption and why you shouldn't like people that are corrupt, right? Because they'll just lie and just be like, you know, they're corrupt. Why wouldn't they be corrupt towards you? They're corrupt towards everything else. Like if Hillary Clinton got in there, or like Joe Biden just right now is a perfect example with what just came out, the alcohol. They want to regulate you to alcohol twice a week. You can only have 2 drinks a week. I don't know how they're going to handle fifths or anything. You can only have double shots, so there's destroying a huge American industry for no reason. And then aren't they the party that wants to legalize all drugs? So you would think you're going in there voting for this guy like Joe Biden's going to legalize weed and legalize magic mushrooms and all this. Oh, wait, what's this? He's making alcohol illegal. Like, he's just a liar. See, that's the corruption of all this. It's they go and get votes for power, or they just want to get votes to get power, and then they're not going to do what you want anyway, even if it's good for the polls. Like, why aren't the Democrats trying to legalize weed? That they always run on it, but they're not. I haven't heard that talked about federally like at all. And I mean, the right's getting more accepted about it. If the Senate and Biden wanted to legalize weed nationally, the right might actually compromise on some stuff like that. But no, they don't even bring it up. But then, okay, let's make alcohol legal. It's just all a sham. Get Biden out of there, get the corrupt people out of there, and then we can, like I was saying, like with Jimmy Dore, with leftists, then we can argue policy. But that's just all went out the window the last 2-3 decades or whatever. It's like you can't even argue policy. It's not about the policy anymore. It's just hey, we want to win. If we win, that's all we care about. But the policy doesn't always come along with it. But leftists act like they do. If we get a leftist in there, the policy would come along with it. Look at, I was just saying, with the Biden thing in alcohol, it's not coming along with it. You're not getting what you want. These infrastructure bills just have all this, what is it? What do they call it? Pork belly spending or whatever. It's just going to nothing. It's not really going to help. I mean, some of the stuff in the infrastructure bill is okay. I mean, it's going to bridges and repairing stuff and stuff like that. I don't agree with like federalized infrastructure bills and stuff, but at least I'm just pointing out, okay, maybe it is somewhat beneficial in a way, right? I think it's mostly waste, but maybe there are a few benefits that here and there. But look at all the money they spend. It's not going to what it should be going to. But the leftists think they should. It should. So just point out the corruption. Get a leftist in there that actually, like, imagine if Jimmy Dore was president, right? He's a leftist. He wants universal health care and stuff. I disagree with that, but at least he's honest, and we can actually have a debate about it and like aren't arguing what's fake and what isn't. A lot of people on the left will be like, no, the whole thing about Biden's laptop is fake. MSNBC told me, when it's like, obviously, come on, it's not fake. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I'll leave it there. It's just really interesting, and it's where do we go forward? You know, if the people on the left can't admit that their guy is not good and they should get a new guy. But let's move on to the next story. Ramaswamy gets in a heated exchange with a CNN anchor. Let's play a clip.
Presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy had an interesting exchange with CNN's Dana Bash as he defended his remarks about squad member Ayanna Pressley. All this after Pressley attacked Vivek, saying, quote, "We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice." Watch.
What does that even mean?
How in any way are the views you're talking about comparable to the views and atrocities committed by the KKK?
What I said is the Grand Wizards of the KKK would be proud of what they would hear her say, because there's nothing more racist than saying that your skin color predicts something about the content of your viewpoints or your ideas. You didn't just say they would be proud. For Ayanna Pressley to tell me that because of my skin color I can't express my views, that is wrong.
He's pissed.
It is divisive. It is driving hate in this country.
Final thoughts, Joe.
It is driving hate in this country.
Well, I have no idea why anybody would go on CNN at this point. You go there not for an interview and to discuss issues. It's to debate somebody from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, why would you go to
Dana
CNN?
Bash clearly is an activist more than a journalist at this point. Look, Martin Luther King says we need to judge people by the content of their character.
Ramaswamy, to be fair, he's just trying to get any eyeballs that he can on there. He doesn't care if he has to debate people. So that's why he went on there. He's like, I'll go destroy people. I mean, we're talking about him right now. You know, there's a plus to it. It's not like Donald Trump going on CNN. Everyone knows who Donald Trump is. It's just going to get them ratings. But Ramaswamy, people don't know who he is, so why not?
The color of their skin. Literally, that is Vivek Ramaswamy's point at this point in that interview. And he did very well there, as he always does in interviews. He's not afraid to go anywhere.
He did.
Yeah. I mean, I like Vivek for the most part. I did that story on him yesterday about how he's like, no, I would have certified the election in 2020, and then I would have just like tried to get a law passed for voter ID and stuff. I don't agree with that. I think that's kind of what Ramaswamy is saying. He wants to bring the country back together. He's like, this is the problem. Everyone's divided. That's a huge reason why everyone's divided. In 2020, half of the population didn't get any answers. And then he was like, but we should have just certified the election. What I think should happen, they should have sent it back to the states to get certified, like I said yesterday. And then if they certify it again, then you certify it. But the fact that there was no investigations at all, there's no audits. It's like, I think that's why the country's so divided. It's not because of I don't know what he thinks it is really, but I think that's why. You know what I mean? But, that's just my opinion. Let's move on to the next story. Sorry, bear with me here. Still new. Still episode 7. This one's messed up. GOP lawyer and activist found dead. Police rule it a homicide. Here's a clip.
Stories like this today might be shocking. I mean, they're shocking no matter what. But a story like this coming out today maybe has many people worried. So I want to open this segment by saying sometimes bad things happen. Crimes happen. That's why we have law enforcement. That's why we have criminal courts. Since the beginning of human history, humans have committed crimes against each other. What I'm trying to say is the story I'm about to read you may actually just be a local affair. It may be something related to a personal beef. We really don't know. But this is the story from NBC Boston about a GOP activist and lawyer being stabbed to death in his own home. Discovered with a stab wound to his neck. Now, according to the story, they're saying they're questioning whether or not it was self-defense. Sure, fine, whatever. I just want to say this. While I do have that disclaimer that maybe it's this lawyer guy stole money from somebody, maybe he was having an affair on his wife, maybe they got into a fight over a poker game, who knows? Whenever there's a story about a right-wing individual as the perpetrator, the motive drops. The question from every corporate media outlet, was it extremism? Who is this crazed MAGA fanatic? They say, here's the motive, here's the transcript, here's the manifesto. Whenever the victim is on the right, oh, well, we don't know. There's always an excuse. Whenever the perpetrator is on the left, it's, we'll get to it. We're still waiting on that manifesto from the transgender individual. Typically, these things are released very quickly. But again, I don't know. But let's talk about what's going on in this country. And we'll talk about this, and we'll talk about social breakdown. Vivek Ramaswamy says, we cannot have national divorce. He is correct. We can't allow this great nation to fall. I would argue, and in my view, the far left extremists desperately want some kind of social disorder and breakdown, potential revolution or civil war, because all of these things lead to the end of the U.S. Constitution. And as much as my friend Michael Malice does not believe it is meaningful as I do, I do think, and I should elaborate on what I mean by meaningful, but that's my point, it is. It provides a legal basis and a framework by which our culture stands. Imperfectly, nonetheless. But it does provide some protections. At least until people start to realize that the courts have no ability to enforce anything and it's all cultural. Then you will get far left extremists setting up autonomous zones, and the only question is whether or not the executive branch can and is willing to stop them. Likely isn't. We saw this with Chaz Chop. We saw this with the George Floyd Autonomous Zone. We saw the same thing.
The one good thing if there was national divorce is the federal government would be smaller, but yeah, I don't know. It sounds really interesting. The United States wouldn't be the powerhouse that it is in the world if the country broke up. So the wealth would drop dramatically. So that would be a downside. But really, the leftist country would not survive very long, and then they would just come crawling back to the right states because they'll just tax everyone into oblivion. So
in Georgia, they don't care. When these extremists set up these autonomous zones, cops do nothing. But let's read this story and break down what's going on. NBC Boston reports a suspicious death investigation that was underway this week in Durham, New Hampshire, has been ruled a homicide after an autopsy was completed on the victim. The New Hampshire Attorney General's office said in a statement Sunday that the medical examiner determined the death of 41-year-old Alexander Talcott was caused by a stab wound to the neck. His manner of death had been ruled a homicide. A spokesperson for the Attorney General's office has confirmed that Talcott was a GOP activist and lawyer. The state director of the New Hampshire chapter of the Republican National Lawyers Association said in a statement to NBC Boston that Talcott stood out as a staunch advocate for the core values of the Republican Party. His unwavering belief in liberty, free markets, and limited government resonated deeply in his role as a lawyer. Within the RNLA, his leadership was unwavering in promoting our shared values, ensuring every member felt empowered and well prepared, William O'Brien said of Talcott. Alex was an exceptionally skilled champion for the rule of law and the importance of fair and honest elections. We will forever honor Alex's selfless dedication and profound contributions to our shared vision of liberty through the legal processes. O'Brien added his legacy will undoubtedly inspire future generations within the RNLA and the greater legal community. Talcott was found dead in his Bennett home early Saturday morning.
He's only 41.
There were numerous police vehicles on the scene, and the Attorney General's office said, at the time, they were actively investigating a man's suspicious death at their residence. His name wasn't released until Sunday, at which point officials said they had identified all of the people involved in the incident, and there is no known danger to the public. Investigators are continuing to look at whether or not the person who stabbed Talcott was acting in self-defense. Their name has not been released. An investigation into Talcott's death is ongoing, and further information has not been shared at this time. Self-defense!
His name would be interesting because, yeah, if it's someone a different political persuasion, that would definitely make you wonder.
In someone else's home.
That's
Makes
weird.
it hard for me to believe. But possible. Entirely possible.
It is possible.
Right? Somebody comes over for a meeting because there's a contentious circumstance over a debt, and no one expects things to get out of hand. And they're arguing and talking when a fight breaks out between the two men, and a guy
Who knows?
stabs the other guy, and he says
but
he
I see what
attacked
he's
me.
saying. Who knows what
I
happened?
think it is unlikely, to be completely honest. But I don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah, who
And I think it's
knows?
entirely likely the
police
story
need to
comes
give
out.
more
It's
details.
going to be that it was a debt, it was an affair, it was something stolen. It could be that the two guys were angry and the dude in the house said, okay, fine, come in. And then, something happened. But if it was a fight between the two individuals that broke out between the two individuals mutually, and the other guy said it was self-defense, he was attacking me. We'll never know. The GOP lawyer.
Well, he
is
might
dead.
eventually if the cops
I want
give
to
us
talk
more
to you about
details,
where
or
this
if there's a
country is
camera.
going and why this story matters.
Yeah, but for right now.
First, the immediate assumption among most people in the political realm is that if a GOP activist and lawyer is killed, it's probably something political. And I think it's fair to say that whatever the story may be, that's likely. I'll put it this way. Two guys are angry with each other. One guy is perhaps they're the same political party. Who knows? Perhaps there's an activist who's being sued. Perhaps there's a legal meeting taking place to stop some legal proceeding. Who knows? Politics probably does play a role to a certain degree, but I don't know. What matters is that people are going to view that story, and they're going to perceive it in much the same way as I expressed in the beginning. When a left-wing violent extremist engages in these actions, no manifesto, no motive, everyone's got to keep it hush-hush, and the story disappears. When the perpetrator is perceivably on the right, or if they can even justify in some way to claim he is, then you get all the motivations in the world and everyone asking that question. And this is where we are right now. From the Daily Mail, anti-migrant rally turns violent outside New York City Mayor Gracie's mansion. Trump supporters and counter-protesters clash after 100,000 people from the southern border flood the 5 boroughs.
I can pretty much guarantee you those aren't all Trump supporters. I knew they were going to say that when he started. I was like, oh, yeah, here we go. They're going to say, okay, these are all Trump supporters, because it's like, of course, even though they probably aren't. The left is turning on migration. If you've seen any of my other videos, the people in Chicago, people in New York, especially the black community in Chicago, they are turning on immigration super, super fast. And so are people in New York. I saw these kids protesting outside at a school because they were putting them in their gymnasium. And they were saying, we support asylum seekers, but not on school grounds. So they're not Trump supporters. They're just pushing the leftist agenda so hard that even leftists don't like it anymore.
This is an interesting circumstance. This is New York City. Trump supporters in New York City.
That's what I would say.
Well,
he said the
in
same
reality,
thing. That's hilarious.
We have seen in Chicago and we have seen in New York, as well as many of these places, the locals,
is driving people out of their parties so fast. It's outrageous.
Whether Trump supporters or not, are furious over the massive influx of immigration, of migrants, illegal immigrants into their cities. Even the mayor is saying they can't handle it. And in many circumstances, you have these cities declaring states of emergency over it. So who are these far left extremists, quite literal terrorists, who are attacking locals trying to defend this country? The political extremism is on the rise. And now we have people fighting with each other. We have the police arresting different groups.
The same thing happened in California. They were having a gay pride assembly. And then it was at the end of, it was in June. And then these people are out protesting it. The parents were. And then Antifa, they just come over and start attacking them. It was nuts. And then they went and talked to the congressperson from California, and the congressperson's just like, "Oh, you're making all this up and are just doing this for social media." He told that to a parent when as the assembly was going on. He could have just went in there and saw the assembly. But it's nuts. And then he was all talking and being nice to the leftists who were attacking the parents. It's so wild. Antifa's just nuts.
But eventually, something breaks down. Fighting ensues. People get arrested. Turns violent. I don't know where we're currently headed in this country. I think it is fair to say, oh, we're talking about civil war again. I said it. It's too early to drink, though, so you can't have a drink. Unless you're watching this video later. Civil war is possible. That's all I'm saying. Because when I posted the story about the GOP lawyer being killed, many people responded with civil strife. You've been watching the videos. And that's a quote from Stephen Marsh. You can tell me I'm wrong all day, every day. Maybe I'm silly for being the only one talking about it, but boy, does it feel like we are frogs in a pot boiling, and I'm the only one saying, guys, the temperature is going up. So
I don't know if you're the only one, but I see his point.
They're trying to indict the president. I'm sorry.
It's kind of a shtick.
They're trying to imprison the former president, Donald Trump, and frontrunner. People are blocking roads in various points across this country saying the world's ending. There's fires seemingly everywhere. Some people think the government's doing it on purpose. Another thinks that the world is ending because of climate change. It doesn't matter where you stand politically. That's not part of my argument. My point is, no matter what happens, there are two prevailing views on what is really happening and people fighting over it. And the fighting is getting worse. It's escalating. At this protest in New York City, you had far left extremists. Look at this. Andy No tweets, far left serial riot arrestees Jennifer Hansen and Atlanta terror suspect Teresa Chen were at the violent direct action today against the anti-migrant crisis protest in New York City. Hansen rushes in to fight before being pulled away by the police. Tensions are escalating. There are far left extremists traveling around engaging in overt acts of terror. In Atlanta, they actually stormed a government facility under construction.
And I mentioned California.
They were shooting at cops. One cop got shot, and they shot and killed one of these guys. Can we slow down for a second there, my friends? All right, let's go back to Atlanta. Let's slow down. Atlanta. Far left extremists occupy government territory. The government is trying to set up a police training facility. The far left extremists occupy this armed with weapons. The police approach. The extremists open fire on the police, striking one of the officers. The officers return fire, killing one of the extremists. That's called a shootout between political extremists and the government. And this person walking around free because the government is becoming impotent.
What?
To do anything about it. In Atlanta, innocent people had their homes destroyed. Well, I don't know who owned the homes. 2 homes that were under construction were burnt to the ground. Someone in their vehicle was forced out. The vehicle was flipped over and torched. Now it's just a private individual. And these people come out and say, we're innocent victims peacefully protesting. Okay. Sure. Man.
The media's
when
on
I saw
their
that video
side.
of like hundreds of far left extremists storming onto sealed government construction property, and they were like, we're nonviolent. It's like, bro, you just shot a cop. Provo, Utah. BLM rioters run up to a vehicle as it's driving down the intersection slowly and minding its own business, and they shoot the driver. Remember that story? You've got in Texas, an armed group of individuals approach a vehicle, one guy with a rifle and AK at low ready, and the driver opens fire, fearing for his life. The guy's got his hand on it low ready. Like, you want to walk around with a rifle? That's fine. You want to be part of a mob, a riotous mob, or a political extremist faction? Don't put your hands in a way in which you can threaten someone's life. Well.
Yeah, then the DA, George Soros-funded DA here in Austin, they prosecuted that guy for it's self-defense.
That Uber driver's going to prison.
Well, I think he probably got appeal. I'll have to go actually look back into that because Greg Abbott, after he got convicted, was looking to pardon him. And then, but there's like a pardoning board here in Texas, so he had to go through that. And then he'll win on appeal also. It was like in an Austin jury. It's like, it's interesting.
We can ignore all of
a lot of people think that Austin's really far left, but I've lived here for 7 years, and from my experience, you will meet some people like that, but most people are like in the middle, so it's crazy that an Austin jury. They must have really selected those people really precisely.
These things and say, sometimes these things happen. By all means, please do so. I can't see the future. Protests happen in New York. What's the big deal, right? I just see the breakdown happening. When the police are continually being demonized, defunded, and refusing to take action, that's where things break down. Check this out. Andy No says an Antifa cameraman was taken down by police in an NYC direct action to confront people protesting the migrant crisis. Antifa photographers take photos to add to their doxing dossiers. Atlanta domestic terror suspect Teresa Shen can be seen in the video. Well, look, everyone's entitled to film, and the left and the right accuse each other of doxing, but the left is lying about it. I was at a protest. Mike Cernovich was speaking at Columbia, and there was a protest. I was just there filming. Some young college student, this is the creepiest thing, these people are evil, abject evil, went to the police and said I was a doxer and a harasser and was filming their faces for a white supremacist doxing dossier because they were people who were going to hunt them down and kill them. And the police said, ma'am, I have no idea what you're talking about. You know what I did? I pulled out my corporate press credentials, for which I have several from past and current jobs. And I said, she's lying. Here's my creds. And they said, I'm sorry about this, sir. Just don't worry about it. But see, that might work on anybody else. I'm just there but look what they're doing. Look what they're lying about. You see, that's what they do. In this circumstance, you have a man who's filming being pinned to the ground and arrested. What the left will do, and their corporate journalist allies, they'll take photos and say the police are arresting journalists. The far left extremists will carry small cameras or their phones and then say they're journalists. So when they engage in overt acts of violence, they can claim the police are targeting journalists. Then the people who don't pay attention, the people who say, I'm not political, and with all due respect, people like Oliver Anthony, get this false view of what's really going on because they don't pay attention. I'll talk about Oliver Anthony coming up at 4. I'm a fan. I think he's right about so much. But I do have some criticisms, not so much about him, but points to be made about the average person and what they're perceiving.
I'll probably cover that tomorrow.
I do think there's something interesting there. And I don't mean any disrespect. I just mean he, like so many other normie working class people, seem to think that there's some middle ground. Yo, these people are abject evil. They will lie to you. They will mercilessly beat you. They will try to kill you. Then they will lie to the press, and their allies in press will lie about what happened to trick the normies into defending them. That's what's happening. This is the breakdown.
But then it's going back the other way because, the indictment of Trump and a lot of people are seeing this stuff more and more. They're going away from media.
You have this.
Mainstream media.
You have this. Clown World posted this video. It's a woman throwing a large object onto the hoods of police cruisers, smashing their windows. Why? Well, you see, what happens is after people are propagandized by the lies of the far left into believing that the police are the evil perpetrators, sometimes they are. Cops are people. But you get a far left extremist physically attack someone, which happens in this video. The police then arrest one of these people. They only film the arrest and they say the cops are targeting innocent journalists. Regular people then see the videos and say the police have gone rogue, allowing social disorder and social collapse. Vivek Ramaswamy says, national divorce is not an option. That would mean we lose the U.S. Constitution itself. I'm running for president to deliver a national revival instead. I like that. I like Vivek. Far from perfect. Good reasons and good questions about whether we can trust him. But for the most part, my conversations with him, he's been quick. And I got to tell you, people calling him the used car salesman. Sure. If he is, he's the best I've ever seen. I don't believe everything he says. That'd be stupid, of any politician. And his opinions have changed. That's fine. But when you have a real conversation with Vivek, he doesn't beat around the bush and he answers the questions and he addresses the critiques and the concerns. He thinks about it and he says, okay, it's Jordan Peterson-esque in a way. You say, hey, man, you recently said this like last year. And he goes, yeah, you know what? Maybe I was wrong about that. What else can I say? Right? I'm learning as I'm going. And you're like, well, what can you do? Trust him or not trust him? Michael Malice responded saying, national divorce is an inevitability and far more realistic than any semblance of constitutional rule. And yo got me trending on Twitter for saying civil war. I'm just too famous, I guess. Okay, fine. I got a lot of followers. Thank you for watching my show and supporting my work. I really do appreciate it, but it is kind of weird because I don't even really think about that sometimes. Michael Malice is saying national divorce is inevitable. I don't even know if I go that far. I'm saying I think we may be entering a civil war. Civil war may be possible because we're seeing this escalation and the temperature keeps cranking up. All I'm really saying when it comes to these stories is we are frogs in a pot, and I am watching them crank the temperature up. And I'm telling you, their hand ain't going back the other direction. And there's no reason for it to. Everything is pushing this in one direction. But I still don't think national divorce is inevitable. There's so many variables before us. Donald Trump might win. I think Donald Trump has a very, 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 very strong chance of winning. Even Democrats are saying the odds are on his side. And if he does, that could lead to national divorce for sure. Or it could lead to a crackdown which crushes the corrupt deep state intelligence agencies.
And then they're also pushing so far, the left is. So it's like a lot of normal people that were on the left. I know a lot of people that were on the left. And now they lean right. Tim Pool's one of them. A few years ago, he leaned left, and then people tried to attack him in his New Jersey home, and then he's like, okay, I actually like guns, and now he's gotten way more libertarian over the last few years. So the more they push on this stuff, the more it just kind of the pendulums will start swinging the other way. So I think it's interesting he's saying this. You know, he reads the news a lot, and that's probably why, because he sees all like the worst stuff. But then at the same time, if you dissect the polls and everything and just see what people are saying, because I look at the news all day too, you know, but I haven't been doing it as long, to be fair. But anyway, so people are just going back the other way because of all this stuff. Like the people in Chicago, New York, I was talking about, like the people, they hate immigration now. So I don't know. They're pushing. If they push too far, people are going to be like, okay, this is not what I want. I don't want immigration and stuff like that. So everyone will eventually move to the right, except for these crazy extremists that just want to fight and want a revolution. The people that don't want a revolution and they're just agreeing with policies, they are going to eventually just be like, okay, forget all this. I'm just going to agree with people on the right. And then if everyone's perceived as being on the right, except for this small faction, you know, there won't be national divorce. There would definitely be a crackdown.
Pushes out the cultural extremists and just shuts it down. And we get a national revival. Or maybe something happens to Trump. He's removed from the ballot. Vivek wins. I don't know. I have no idea. It's also possible that Joe Biden wins. Trump's name's taken off the ballot. No one believes that the election is legitimate. But at this point, you don't have weird questions about ballot fraud. You have overt actions to remove Trump from the ballot, in which case people now say, there's no question of fraud. They took Trump's name off the ballot. We didn't have an election. And then maybe then, you get a national divorce. I don't know for sure. But I can tell you that confidence is breaking. I want you to see this video. I may do a longer video on it, or maybe not. I talked about it in this morning's segment. Burning Man 2023, Nevada Rangers plow truck through Extinction Rebellion protests after the activists blocked a road into festival, causing miles-long gridlock. Well, that's it. Small handful of cultist nut jobs blocking a 2-lane highway. Okay. What happens? I mentioned this 2 years ago, 3 years ago. What happens when 16, that's it, 16, let's just say anti-government, not right, not left, just anti-government, or not even that, but people with no confidence in government decide they're going to set up checkpoints. And I don't mean 16 people in one place. I mean at key routes in the Midwest, in states like maybe Nebraska.
I don't know if there's that many extremists to be able to pull this off.
An armed group, local militia or otherwise, sets up a checkpoint. And they say the issue is, let's say there's no election. And I don't mean that in the sense that they just cancel it. I mean like Trump's name's removed from Florida or Ohio or Wisconsin. These people then say, we're not going to allow Capitol Police to organize in our state. We're not going to allow social credit scores. The government is illegitimate.
Okay, I see where he's going.
And not even any beef. Maybe these guys are like, look, law enforcement isn't dealing with the riotous mobs. It's not dealing with Extinction Rebellion.
I don't know how
happens
they'd set
when
up
these people
checkpoints,
escalate tensions by blocking roads? So local militia groups say, we're going to secure our highways. Then they create massive jams. What happens when the groups get a bit more concerned when they see mob of maskless thieves clear out shelves at LA Macy's as stunned shoppers look on? It just keeps happening. 13 arrested as fight breaks out in South Bay Shopping Center, downtown Crossing in Boston. Wow. We had Nordstrom. in San Francisco shut down. What happens when in these small towns, rural areas, far away, towns of maybe 2,000, they say law enforcement has abandoned us, and they form their own local police force? What happens when the actual police force is instructed? We need to make sure these roving bands do not shut down trade to our city. And then they go and start controlling the highways. Factionalization.
I don't think that.
What happens if a more
I would think that
circumstance
I think
occurs?
it'd be more like the mob goes and starts raiding stores, and then, they fight them. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. So I would think that would be way more likely than just shutting down the road. Why would you do that? Just wait till they get there and defend the store once it's there. And if you literally just let the store owners defend it, or like private security, and weren't going to prosecute them and they wouldn't get in trouble, then you would already have this. No one would, no one's going to let someone just take their stuff. Even in New York, they start fighting them when they're not allowed to, so, and the police won't do anything there, but they're starting to fight back. Even though if they kill them or something, they'll go and probably get prosecuted. It just becomes enough is enough.
And a group just outright says, we are controlling these roads into and out of our state from now on. And that's it. Look, I don't know. I can tell you this. Right now,
I think that sounds
a Republican lawyer and activist was killed in his own home. And immediately there are attempts to say, no, it may have been self-defense. We don't do that in any other political circumstance. Jussie Smollett lies, and the entire media comes out and says, MAGA country, racism in this country. You get the Big Bang Theory with their big group photo, and all that happened was allegedly, someone threw a thin bit of polyester twine around his neck or something like that and sprinkled the bleach on him. It's horrible. The real story is that he faked it. But either way, the dude wasn't dead, and he was completely fine and healthy. And then a national campaign of outrage over this poor actor. A GOP lawyer was murdered in his own home, and they're like, hold on there a minute, it may have been self-defense. That's my point.
Yeah, that's so true.
It may have been.
Conclusions.
It may have been. It may have been two guys fighting over a poker game. That's it. Hey, you got an ace up your sleeve. You're using special glasses. He's cheating. You guys are in on it. Fight breaks out. Dude punches him. Guy grabs something in his neck. Maybe. Or Republican activist filed a lawsuit against various organizations. One of those organizations, the rep shows up to his house, bangs on the door. He says, how dare you? They start arguing, and then a fight breaks out. Guy who comes to his house, stabs him in the neck, and then says, he was attacking me. He was attacking me. And they say, okay, maybe it's self-defense. It's a shame. I don't know if there are any cameras or if there's any evidence.
Yeah, I'm
because,
curious.
The other guy involved in the fight's no longer alive.
Yep.
I will stress, it may have been something totally non-political. Jussie Smollett was a hoax.
The fact that they're not releasing the guy's name, the perpetrator, kind of makes me wonder, though.
Maybe that this is just, we see the story and we're like, whoa, is it political? They didn't need to write that he was a GOP lawyer. Like when a truck driver dies or gets stabbed, do we got any national stories about that? We don't. That's my point. How many truck drivers, plumbers, carpenters, tradesmen, store clerks have been killed in their own home? I got to be honest. A lot of people get murdered in this country. I shouldn't say a lot, but like a substantial amount considering there's 300 and some odd million people. We don't have national headlines over that. So my warning is to be careful with these stories.
Yeah, but an anti-fraud, he's like an anti-election fraud person, and then it happens a year before the election. That's why it's a story. He's a prominent small government anti-election fraud guy, and then bam, year before the election.
But at the same time, to try to point out, compare this to Jussie Smollett. The reaction from the left when he lied and faked a hate crime was insane. Here we have a Republican lawyer and activist murdered in his own home. And it's just like, well, seems like a nothing burger. Maybe it's that attitude that keeps tensions to a minimum. But I feel like people on the right.
I mean, that's true. But if that attitude was from the left on leftist people too, It would be way smaller, the tensions would be, that's for sure.
Trump supporters, Republicans, are looking at that, and they're looking at it through their lens, saying we are under attack. And the left doesn't care at all. They don't care. There is no leftist who will come out and report on that story and say, please stop. We have to stop the violence. Yet when it goes either way, let me tell you this. If a far-right extremist attacked the left, everyone on the left will cry bloody murder, and Ben Shapiro will come out and say it was wrong. Of course he would. He's a good dude. When a Republican lawyer is murdered, I and people like Ben Shapiro and many others, apprised to the story, will come out and say it was wrong. And of course, we're good people. The left likely won't talk about it at all. Doesn't matter to them. They'll ignore it.
Yep.
In these stories where the far left extremists are attacking people, violating democratic principles.
I was saying that in the last segment with Joe Biden. You know, it's like they know he's corrupt, but they just don't care. If there was, without a shadow of a doubt, Donald Trump was really corrupt and everyone knew it, the right would turn on Trump. But the fact that people don't turn on Joe Biden on the left, they just excuse it. Just be like, well, we want our policies to go through. That really says a lot.
Like in New York, where most people are saying, stop, we need help. And the mayor's like, we got to deal with these migrants. The far left comes out and beats people who oppose them.
It's insane.
And you know what's going to happen? Leftist commentators will cheer them on. That's the state of this country. And so long as there's no backbone among those who believe in the Constitution and among law enforcement in many places, like where the Chaz operated, then I think we're headed in a very, very dangerous direction, which I mentioned in the first segment this morning. And that is a Chaz occupation on a large piece of private property. And then what? Let's say you've got a semi-rural area. Let's say it's slightly outside of New York City. What's the name of that? I don't know. I can't remember the name. Outside. Let me actually check my map because I want to actually point out this area. I think it's a good area to highlight. There's an area just to the west of New York in New Jersey that is lightly populated and I don't think I can find it. Lightly populated and very industrial. Where is it?
You have to run away in New Jersey if someone breaks into your home. If you can get out, you legal. You can't shoot back or anything. You have to just try to. They said if you even have a second-story balcony, jump off. Like what?
It's like a little city. No, I can't find it.
I don't know why he's so concerned. We get what your point is, Tim.
There's probably a whole bunch of examples. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of corporate land, but lower income. There's a lot of people who own property there, and it's just an investment property. The business has dried up, and so it's just like an empty building. What happens when far left extremists occupy it? And the person who owns it says, hey, guys, you can't be here. Whatever it is you're doing, you got to go. And they call the police, and the police say, there are 12 officers on rotation in this small town. What would you have us do? Contact the sheriff or the state. And so they do. And New Jersey says, we will not get involved in a conflict with leftist protesters because we've got an election coming up.
A militia.
And the property owner is like, I've got 50 far left extremists armed with rifles creating an occupation on my land. You know, let's say it's 3 acres of commercial property, and now it's worthless to me, and they're claiming it's theirs. So what happens? No idea.
A militia
It could be that the owner is politically persuaded himself. And
a militia comes to have a shootout, and then the media blames the militia.
You could maybe get private security who comes in and clashes. The police then intervene to stop the fighting, and there's a shootout happening, just like we already saw in Georgia, in Atlanta, just outside of Atlanta. A shootout, crazy. And it escalates. The shootout in Atlanta is interesting to me because, well, it's not the first one. There was the guy who went to the ICE facility in Seattle, in I think it was Tacoma, shooting and throwing firebombs. They killed him. Then you have a shootout in Atlanta. Is this not the Bleeding Kansas phase, pre-Civil War? I honestly don't know, because maybe
I don't know. Might just be rogue
and it
people.
calms down. But as Phil Labonte
I don't think
says,
there's that many extremists.
What's the off-ramp? I don't see it. I completely agree. So by all means, keep up the memes. Keep me trending when I say Civil War. But if you have any real criticisms of what I've been saying, by all means, tell me exactly where the off-ramp is. We can probably hypothesize as to how things cool down. Like I said, Donald Trump gets elected.
Yeah, more people going to the right.
Law enforcement is bolstered. And then we go and shut down the criminals And I don't see why that would cool things off, though. You can make the argument, people calm down. You can also make the argument that it justifies the far left extremists and they return with equal and opposite force.
Well, they're going to get crushed, though.
So tell me.
Because normal people won't like it.
I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4.
Yeah, I would say that's the off-ramp. It's going to cool down because more people are going to go to the right. And then the more extreme the left gets, the more normal people see it. The more people that go, because a lot of people do cover this stuff, so normal people would see it. They're just, the mainstream media doesn't. But the more that the mainstream media falls, and we know it's all falling slowly but surely, then normal people are going to be like, oh, this is what's happening. There's not like this whole, oh, Trump supporters, blah, 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 that the media wants to paint. It's going to be like, oh, so there's the left is fine, the right is fine, but then there's extremists mainly on the left, Antifa. So, okay, get them and throw them all in jail. It's like if there was a big gang in America, like MS-13 or something, which Antifa kind of is. It's just not as organized, I guess. People are going to want to get rid of them, you know. But let's move on to the next story. Mark Levine explodes on Trump's Georgia indictment. This is 100 pages of BS, he says. Let's play a clip.
Welcome back, America. Now, given the police state tactics of the Biden administration and the Democrat Party, now we get to Donald Trump. Remember the Durham report about Russia collusion? People should read it. He shot torpedoes into the side of the Department of Justice and FBI like no prosecutor's ever done in my lifetime. And I speak as a former chief of staff to the Attorney General of the United States. The corruption at the FBI, at the Department of Justice, remains. And it comes at the top. Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland is a very angry man who wanted to be on the Supreme Court. Now he's Attorney General. He's enormous power. And he's using it. Every decision made at the federal level affecting Donald Trump has to be approved by him and his radical left-wing deputy, Deputy Attorney General Monaco. But they're worse than Stalin. These are worse than Stalin trials. These are worse than communist show trials. Can you name one targeted victim during the Stalin regime who was indicted in 4 different jurisdictions? Can you name one who is facing 91 charges? Can you name one who is facing almost 1,000 years in prison? No. This is worse. So why are they doing this? This is all coordinated, folks. All coordinated between the locals, the state, and the feds. All Democrat cities. That's why they're not bumping into each other when they make these announcements. More than that, they're coming seriatim, one after another. You have to plan those things. They don't just happen. They're trying not to interfere with each other, but they're dumping all the charges, making all the publicity, draining Trump of his resources, draining Trump of the ability to campaign for president of the United States, all in the last 5 months. And they want all their trials in the next 6 to 12 months. That's not coincidence. He's charged with crimes relating to election activity. He's charged with crimes relating to documents. He's charged with crimes relating to non-disclosure agreements. He's charged with crimes relating to campaign activity in one state. He was charged before with a phony impeachment where he turned out to be right. And they didn't even go through the normal due process such as it is that the House of Representatives has traditionally. Then he was charged again with another impeachment, and he was tried when he was in Mar-a-Lago. An impeachment that accused him of insurrection and sedition, for which he's never been charged, and he never did. Then we had the Mueller criminal investigation, where he had to give testimony, written answers, and there were thousands of subpoenas. His kids were all brought in. Hundreds and hundreds of witnesses and so forth. They had nothing, all intended to sabotage his presidency. That's a police state. And they're doing it to you. I just went through a whole long list of things, and they're doing it to you right now. Now, on top of that, look at this. They use a grand jury in Washington, D.C. to bring charges that are related to Florida. That violates, as I keep saying here, venue limitations. in the Department of Justice manual for prosecutors. That is an abuse of power. What else? You're not supposed to bring actions that may have an impact on an election. That's another section of the Department of Justice regulations. Federal prosecutors and agents may never select the timing of any action, including investigative steps, criminal charges, or statements for the purpose of affecting any election, or for the purpose of giving an advantage or disadvantage to any candidate or political party. The only time they can do it is when it's approved by the Attorney General of the United States. What about attorney-client privilege? Have you ever had an attorney? Have you ever had somebody you're up against? And the person you're up against goes to a judge and says, you know, I think those two are colluding to commit a crime. And she holds a secret hearing. And she says, you know what, I think you're right. So your lawyer has to testify for the other side in a grand jury and provide all the written notes of your conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, why go through the motions of justice? Just hang the guy.
Huh.
You know how far back attorney-client privilege goes? 1577.
Wow.
English common law. That's English common law. But it goes back
before
before
America.
that, too. Ancient Rome believed in attorney-client privilege. Modern-day America does not. So here are the charges.
That's
for
insane.
June 8th.
I didn't know that was that
Documents. What are they charging him with? Well, violations of the Espionage Act of 1917. That law was created by Woodrow Wilson to imprison 2,000 of his political opponents, as I've told you, including a presidential opponent, Eugene Debs. They rounded him up. They put him in prison so he could get through the election.
Woodrow Wilson was the worst president
False
in history.
statements. False statements. You can drive a truck through that allegation of false statements. What else? The Enron statutes. The Enron obstruction statutes were never intended to be applied to a president of the United States. Here's the crap indictment that all the legal analysts says this is where the problem is, right here. Not if we're a republic with a true rule of law. That's crap. Then we have, here's another one. Here we have the January 6th case. And I've told you before, what did he do, Mr. Smith? 1871 Klan Act. What? The Enron Act. The guy loves the Enron Act on obstruction and a financial fraud statute. Look, right here. Oh, my God. Crap. Mr. Smith goes to Washington, and Mr. Smith blows up the place. Here we have Atlanta, Georgia, by Fannie Willis. Now, look at her indictment. I don't even know if she read the damn thing. You know what this is? 100 pages of bull. I could take one section out of here. Let me ask you a question. Are you allowed to challenge a campaign in open and challenge its legitimacy? According to her, no. So put RICO aside and every other charge aside. She just charged somebody with a felony under state law for exercising their federal First Amendment free speech right. That's part of this crap.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey,
damn, he went in. That was a great video. I didn't know that the attorney-client privilege. I've been saying, hey, it goes to the beginning of America. No, it goes like 250 years before, and then you go to Rome. Wow. Yeah, and that's what they're doing now. They're charging Trump's attorneys and everything for nothing because they filed paperwork, even past the attorney-client privilege. It's nuts. So not even do they want to go and give your lawyer what you talk to your lawyer about. They want to prosecute your lawyer for representing you. Like, how is that even anything that anyone could agree with? Even Fannie Willis's colleagues. Like, how can you go along with this? You would think I don't know, they're just all so corrupt. They would just want their power, want their campaign, and I guess they think they're actually going to win, which is amazing to me. Or I don't know what they think. I don't understand what the plan is. It's all backfiring in the polls. I guess they're just really hoping they could get Trump off the ballot. Is that their end goal? They're like, well, if we can get him off the ballot, then we're golden. But what if another Republican wins? What if Dave Smith steps up and he wins? You don't think Dave